Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. Virginia elects a new governor. The results are in after a highly anticipated and very close race, and the turnout may hold big implications for next year's congressional elections. But Virginia isn't the only region getting new leadership. New York City is too. A new mayor has been selected in a much more straightforward race. Democrats citing progress on President Biden's spending agenda, including controversial items. Why does Senator Bernie Sanders disagree with one of the proposals? The debate over vaccine mandates heating up. While the measures are meant to protect public health, other side effects include staff cuts, potential flight disruptions, and legal battles before the Supreme Court. And opening statements begin in the trial for Illinois teenager Kyle Rittenhouse. He's facing a number of charges after an incident in Kenosha, Wisconsin last year. We take a look at the arguments on both sides. Democrat Eric Adams will be the next mayor of New York City. The New York native says he's been waiting to hold the title for decades. NTD's Arian Pastar has more from the Big Apple.
Adams was the clear favorite from the start as registered Democrats outnumber Republicans 8-1 in New York City. But keeping those numbers in mind, Sliwa actually did fairly well. Adams won the race with 2/3 of the vote. Republican Curtis Sliwa had a little less than 1/3. The rest went to independent candidates.
So brothers and sisters, and the people of our city, they have spoken. And tonight, New York has chosen one of you, one of our own.
Adams describes himself as a moderate Democrat. He wants to keep in place de Blasio's various vaccine mandates. But Adams, who was a police officer for decades, says he will not support movements to defund the police. He says he will also bring back the city's anti-gun crime unit. Republican Curtis Sliwa conceded to his opponent, saying, "I am pledging my support to the new mayor, Eric Adams, because we're all going to have to coalesce together in harmony and solidarity if we're going to save the city that we love." Adams will take office in January after de Blasio has served the maximum amount of 2 terms. Arian Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Democrat Phil Murphy and Republican Jack Ciattarelli are still locked in a battle for New Jersey's gubernatorial race. The vote tally is too close to call. New Jersey residents voted Tuesday to decide whether to have another term with Governor Murphy or elect former Assemblyman Ciattarelli. But the historical odds are against Murphy. If he were to win, it would mark the first time a Democratic governor has been re-elected in New Jersey since 1977. A key issue for this year's election is taxes. New Jersey homeowners pay the highest property taxes in the United States. Ciattarelli's campaign has promised to lower those taxes and freeze them altogether for homeowners who are aged 65 and above. The former assemblyman has also said he will restore state aid to struggling areas and schools, make health care more affordable, and protect medical freedom. He opposes mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations and vaccine passports. Murphy's campaign is focused on affordable housing, criminal justice reform, and ramping up COVID-19 testing capabilities. He has not promised to cut property taxes. He links higher taxes with better schools and health care. A ballot question has been recently filed in Minneapolis, Minnesota, calling to replace the city's police department. Results as of Tuesday night show voters have rejected the plan. The proposal came 17 months after George Floyd was killed in the city, sparking a nationwide outcry for change. This ballot measure has its roots in the Abolish the Police movement from last year. It would amend the city charter and remove language requiring a minimum staffed police department. Instead, a new Department of Public Safety would play its role. Supporters argued that a complete overhaul of policing is necessary to stop police violence, while opponents contend the proposal featured no plan of action and would impact crime-stricken communities at a time when crime is on the rise. Some 56% of voters cast a ballot against it. The closely watched Virginia governor's race is winding down, with Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin defeating former Governor Terry McAuliffe earlier today. He's the first Republican to win statewide office in Virginia since 2009.
Virginia, we won this thing!
Republican candidate Glenn Youngkin has defeated Democrat Terry McAuliffe, winning Virginia's highly anticipated gubernatorial race early Wednesday. The former private equity executive is the first Republican in 12 years to win governorship in the blue trending state. Addressing cheering supporters in Chantilly, a northern Virginia town, Youngkin promised to immediately improve schools, lower taxes, and build a new day for Virginians.
Together, we will change the trajectory of this Commonwealth.
Youngkin surged in the polls in the campaign's final weeks. He presented himself as a political newcomer running against former Governor McAuliffe on decisive issues, including abortion, critical race theory, and former President Donald Trump. Tuesday night in the Washington suburbs, McAuliffe thanked his supporters while saying the race was too early to call.
So we're going to continue to count the votes because every single Virginian deserves to have their vote counted. Let me first of all, I want to thank everybody here with us tonight. It has been a great campaign.
The election outcome is particularly notable as the top issue among voters has shifted away from the pandemic. A survey shows that some 34% of Virginians rank the economy as their #1 priority, compared to 17% choosing COVID-19 and 14% education. Republicans swept key elections in Virginia this year, scoring 2 more victories in the races for lieutenant governor and attorney general. These triumphs could serve as a warning that President Biden's Democrats stand at a disadvantage heading into next year's congressional elections.
Voters in Boston elect City Councilor Michelle Wu as mayor. The daughter of Taiwanese immigrants, she first moved to the city for university studies.
We are ready to meet this moment. We are ready to become a Boston for everyone. We're ready to be a Boston that doesn't push people out, but welcomes all who call our city home.
Wu defeated fellow Democratic City Councilor Anissa Asabi-George. Wu's campaign focused on liberal policies like policing reforms, rent control, and a city-level Green New Deal agenda. Another of Wu's top campaign promises was to create a fair, free public transit system. Wu has a close relationship with U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren. Wu moved to the city from Chicago to attend Harvard University. Boston usually elects mayors with deep city roots. An Emerson College survey shows Wu had a front-runner for the vote, and a poll showed her with a 30-point lead over Asabi-George just days before the election. Boston's previous mayor stepped down earlier this year to become U.S. Secretary of Labor under President Biden. Moderate candidate Bruce Harrell takes the lead in the Seattle mayoral race. Harrell distinguished himself from his opponent by saying he wants to reform but not defund the police. Voters went to the polls with their minds on homelessness, crime, and policing. The dynamic and heavily Democratic Seattle mirrors that in other liberal cities. Back to Basics candidates who promise law and order are facing off against progressives. Harrell's opponent, M. Lorena Gonzalez, was endorsed by service worker unions as well as environmental and urbanist groups. Harrell has strong backing from business and real estate executives. Political consultant Crystal Fincher says more candidates than usual were forced to address policing. The Seattle Police Department is down hundreds of officers because of retirements and resignations amid talk of defunding. Harrell has called for the hiring of more police, including some unarmed officers, as well as the appointment of a cabinet-level position to address rising gun violence in the city. He has criticized his opponent's push during the George Floyd protests to cut the department's budget in half. Democrats say they've made some progress on President Biden's spending agenda, including on 2 controversial items that had been sticking points. NTD's Jessica Beatty explains.
President Biden back in the United States. Top Democrats welcomed him home, citing progress on his spending agenda, announcing a plan to lower prescription drug prices.
This deal will directly reduce out-of-pocket drug spending for millions of patients every time they visit the pharmacy or doctor.
Democrats say the plan would cap out-of-pocket Medicare costs to $2,000, lower insulin prices, and allow Medicare to negotiate prices of some drugs. Key Senator Kyrsten Sinema supports the plan. Democrats also cited progress on loosening a $10,000 cap on state and local deductions, which Republicans created under Trump. Repealing it would benefit higher-income households. Senator Bernie Sanders criticized the idea, tweeting, "At a time of massive income and wealth inequality, the last thing we should be doing is giving more tax breaks to the very rich." Meanwhile, House Republicans also raised concerns Tuesday Representative Byron Donalds says the tax increases go for a decade, while the spending programs might only last for 1 to 3 years.
What they really want to do is have these programs get embedded in our society. And if you embed all these programs into our society over a decade, the real cost can be in upwards of $5 trillion or more.
Steve Scalise raised concerns about proposals that would help illegal immigrants.
They want to create millions more loopholes for illegal aliens to come to this country at a time when President Biden is now contemplating giving $450,000 a year taxpayer money to each illegal alien who's filed suit against the United States. That's more money than a Gold Star family gets.
Biden's plan also facing pressure from moderate Democrats in the House. 5 of them, which is enough to sink the bill, say they won't back it without an estimate of how much it would affect the budget and at least 72 hours to review it. That could mean it won't pass the House this week. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The controversial vaccine mandates that have undoubtedly helped increase vaccination rates are sparking warnings and lawsuits across the country. We take a look at Los Angeles County, New York State, Pennsylvania, and possible disruptions at airports due to Biden's vaccine mandate. Staff departures and possible terminations. The Los Angeles County Sheriff is voicing concerns over the effects of the area's vaccine mandate. Sheriff Alex Villanueva says about 100 staff, or 20%, have already filed for early retirement.
They're the experts in so many different capacities: homicide investigators, crisis negotiators, senior patrolmen. I mean, all kinds of different positions these people occupy, investigators. And these are the people that are starting to walk away. That number is significant.
LA County employees are required to be fully vaccinated by October 1st. Villanueva said some of his employees would rather be fired than get the shot. 3 New York nurses are marching to the Supreme Court to contest the state's vaccine mandate. They've objected to taking a COVID-19 vaccine due to their religious beliefs. Specifically, they don't agree with the use of aborted fetal cells used in testing. This after a federal appellate court allowed the mandate to stay. One of the attorneys for the plaintiffs calls New York's mandate blatant religious discrimination. NTD reached out to Governor Hochul's office for comment. Former Governor Cuomo required healthcare workers to get the shot to combat the spread of the Delta variant. Over in Pennsylvania, a lawsuit alleges that the vaccine mandate violates constitutional rights. It alleges taking or declining a vaccine is a political act. Therefore, when employers force it on employees, they're forcing them to engage in political speech, which is a violation of the First Amendment. Governor Tom Wolf's office did not immediately respond to a request for comment, but Pennsylvania has mandated the vaccine for healthcare workers, saying it's important to protect vulnerable people in healthcare facilities.
As of November 1st, employees for the city of San Francisco who are not vaccinated will lose their jobs. This applies to police officers, firefighters, and also operators for the city's public transit service, Muni.
Our transit operators, the bloodline that gives life to this city, because without us, nobody goes to work, school, church, shopping, their doctor's office, etc.
Roger Marenko is the president of the Transport Workers Union Local 250A, the group that represents the city's Muni workers. He said he's glad to see the vaccination numbers have gone up and more employees can keep their jobs. However, there are about 90 operators that have yet to get the shot. The situation hasn't been easy, especially with all the other stresses operators have on a daily basis.
For our operators to have to be subjected to a forced mandated vaccination policy is just another burden on them. So it's been tough, it's been difficult.
The city of San Francisco announced a vaccine requirement in July, including the 90 Muni operators. The city's mayor said on Friday that a total of 836 employees out of 35,000 have yet to be vaccinated. The San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency stated last month that they do expect there to be noticeable service disruptions starting November 1st. Jason Blair, NTD News, San Francisco.
The trial for Illinois teenager Kyle Rittenhouse began yesterday. He's been accused of killing 2 people during Black Lives Matter riots in Kenosha, Wisconsin last summer. Both sides have made their opening statements, with Rittenhouse's attorney saying he acted in self-defense. Let's take a look at the trial.
Kyle Rittenhouse faces 5 charges. first-degree intentional homicide, first-degree reckless homicide, attempted first-degree intentional homicide, and 2 counts of first-degree recklessly endangering safety. This is what the prosecutor told the jury in his opening statement.
Mr. Rosenbaum is agitating. He is getting in people's faces. He is using obscenities. He is essentially daring people to respond. In fact, at ultimate gas, I believe the evidence will show that he actually gets right up in the face of armed people who are similarly armed as the defendant, who have similar AR-15 type rifles on. And he is literally confronting them in their faces. None of those folks shoot him. And based on all of that evidence, I think you will agree with me that the defendant is guilty of all of these charges.
Joseph Rosenbaum was one of the men Rittenhouse shot during the chaotic evening of August 25, 2020 in Kenosha. Rittenhouse says he went there to help protect businesses from rioters. His attorney told the jury that Rittenhouse acted in self-defense.
Kyle Rittenhouse protected himself, protected his firearm so it couldn't be taken, used against him or other people from Mr. Rosenbaum who'd made threats to kill. And the other individuals who didn't see that shooting attacked him in the street like an animal. Ladies and gentlemen, that's what the evidence will show. Thank you.
One witness said Rosenbaum approached Rittenhouse, and a video from that night showed a protester trying to grab Rittenhouse's firearm. The boyfriend of Rittenhouse's sister was the first witness to testify in the trial.
You said you saw the defendant heading down and then you heard some gunshots. What is the next thing you remember about the defendant after that?
I didn't believe the gunshots were actually his until I got a phone call. And I answered it, and he just said, I shot somebody, and then hung up right away.
What observations, if any, did you make about the defendant when you saw him?
He was freaking out. He was really scared. He was pale, sweating a lot. You could tell he was just scared.
The judge in this case, Kenosha County Circuit Court Judge Bruce Schroeder, says he wants a fair trial. On Monday, he warned potential jurors against relying on media reports. He says some reports have been sloppy and deliberately biased. Rittenhouse, who is now 18, faces a mandatory life sentence if convicted of the most serious count against him, first-degree intentional homicide.
Meta, formerly known as Facebook, announced that it will no longer use facial recognition on its app beginning in the coming weeks. NTD's David Lamb reports.
Facial recognition is exactly what it sounds like. It's software that recognizes faces. It finds a face, shown by the white squares, and compares it to other photos and videos of the same person. Now, in a statement released on Tuesday, Meta, or formerly known as Facebook, announced that it is shutting down its face recognition system in the coming weeks.
The company says it will delete more than 1 billion people's individual facial templates. This is part of a company-wide move to limit the use of face recognition in their products. According to the statement, more than a third of Facebook's daily active users have opted in to its face recognition setting. The VP of Artificial Intelligence stated they need to weigh the positive use cases against growing societal concerns, especially as regulators have yet to provide clear rules. At the annual Technology Web Summit on Monday, an executive said the company is moving towards transparency.
At least for us at Meta, it is that I think that this will accelerate more transparency, including over algorithms, more research, including about kids online, and more regulation.
This comes as Facebook was under fire after whistleblower Frances Haugen and Sophie Zhang spoke up about ethical concerns at the company.
One of the VPs said this will represent one of the largest shifts in facial recognition usage in the technology's history. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
The Department of Justice is taking legal action to stop publishing company Penguin Random House from acquiring publisher Simon & Schuster. In a court filing Tuesday, the DOJ said combining these two book business giants, quote, would likely harm competition in the publishing industry. They are two of the 5 biggest publishers in the U.S. The DOJ argues that combining them would give Penguin Random House too much power over content, authorship, and author compensation. The two companies call the merger, quote, a pro-consumer, pro-author, and pro-bookseller transaction. The suit is one of the Biden administration's first major antitrust actions. The proposed merger is valued at more than $2.1 billion. You might think working from home would give you more free time or a lighter lifestyle, but apparently over 2/3 of remote workers in America are working 2 jobs, and half of them say they're actually more productive. NTD's Faye Corder has the details.
According to a recent survey from ResumeBuilder.com, 69% of remote employees in the U.S. have a second job. Over 1,200 full-time remote workers took part in the survey. It found that money is the primary motivation for working multiple jobs, specifically earning extra spending money and paying off debt.
Unfortunately, sometimes the primary job doesn't pay all the bills. Healthcare is expensive, childcare is expensive, so there's many reasons, but I think it all comes down to, boils down to money.
The president of Poised for the Future company, Ira Wolf, says there's also a workaholic nature in the U.S. labor market, and most people have worked 40-plus hours before.
If I'm going to work 40 hours for you and I was working 60 hours before, that means I can work 40 hours for you and 20 hours for somebody else and get paid more for that.
Most of the respondents said they see a positive impact on productivity. 49% said working multiple jobs makes them more productive, and 39% said they are equally productive as working a single job. But this also raises the question, how long can they keep it up?
There's an eventual burnout problem, whether that's sustainable. With the way the economy is going and labor shortages.
Wolf says employers may want to consider making work hours more flexible if someone wants to get a second job. This could actually increase their loyalty and productivity for the company. Faye Corder, NTD News.
Coming up, wildfires in California are killing an unprecedented number of giant sequoias this year. A nonprofit is looking for ways to save these trees by studying their genetics. A live nativity scene. New York's Archbishop blesses the creatures that will feature in Radio City Music Hall's Christmas Spectacular. That and more on NTD News.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. Over the last 12 years, you've helped MyPillow create thousands of jobs right here in the USA.
When I got MyPillow, I'm asleep almost immediately. I stay asleep at night and I wake up more well-rested in the morning.
That's why I invented MyPillow. My patented fill adjusts to your exact individual needs and helps keep your neck supported and aligned.
I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. Go to MyPillow.com right now to get deep discounts on all MyPillow products. For example, you can get my premium MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now just $29.98, the lowest price ever.
For the best night's sleep in the whole wide world, visit MyPillow.com.
A shrine will replace a small parish church that was destroyed during the September 11th terrorist attacks in New York City. And on Tuesday, the spiritual leader of the world's Eastern Orthodox Christians gave his formal blessing to it.
We stand here today on this hallowed ground at the World Trade Center, where the world changed in a cruel and terrible moment 20 years ago. And may this resurrected St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Church and National Shrine eternally shine the light of Christ throughout this city of New York and around the world as a beacon of faith, of hope, of love.
Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew of Constantinople presided over the ceremonial door opening at St. Nicholas Greek Orthodox Church and National Shrine. The new structure is close to the World Trade Center. It replaces the previous church that was damaged when one of the World Trade Center towers fell. Bartholomew and a group attending the ceremony also blessed items that survived from the previous church. The new shrine will include a room for people of any faith to come and remember the September 11th attacks. 'Tis the season, and New York's Archbishop got the festivities started with the world-famous Rockettes at Radio City Music Hall. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
The Archbishop of New York kicked off the holiday season Tuesday by blessing the animals that will be featured in the Radio City Music Hall's live nativity scene.
I'm here 13 years now, and I've done it, I think, every year because I love it. I enjoy it. And darn it, I don't mind saying you, we need a little Christmas right this very moment. With everything that we've been through, boy, when you look at the turmoil in the world and the worries and problems, the COVID that we got, we need the joy and hope that Christmas gives, and I get it here.
Joined by the famous Rockettes, Cardinal Timothy Dolan sprinkled holy water on a camel, donkey, and sheep after they paraded around the famous building.
The animals help remind us of the true meaning of Christmas with the living nativity scene. So the animals and bringing them in today are just a reminder of that, and we're just so excited again to be back.
The pandemic forced the cancellation of the holiday show and the blessing of the animals last year. Tiffany Billings is in her 10th season as a Rockette. She says she's happy that Cardinal Dolan is continuing the tradition.
We just want to thank Cardinal Dolan for coming out and continuing this tradition with us here at Radio City. Last year we weren't here, so this is so special. We love our furry castmates so much, and we're so excited that they're here. That just means that our show is opening super soon, which is November 5th, this Friday. We're so excited.
And may God bless all the wonderful efforts of the Rockettes, the Radio City Music Hall, and all the good people who come this Christmas season. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. And our beloved animals.
The Christmas Spectacular starring the Radio City Rockettes will run from November 5th to January 2nd. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Recent wildfires have killed thousands of California's giant sequoias, which are among the world's oldest and largest trees. Now, a nonprofit is leading an effort to save them. The trees are in danger of being wiped out by increasingly intense wildfires. Here are the details.
The Archangel Ancient Tree Archive is a nonprofit that's trying to save giant sequoias in California. One of the group's measures includes preserving the genetics of the trees.
The new paradigm is, if we know the largest, oldest trees are in threat, we can go in there ahead of time, clone those trees, make exact genetic copies to multiply those out by the millions in case of a loss like this fire or an earthquake.
Large sequoias were once considered nearly fireproof. They had never been incinerated before 2015. The trees even rely on fire to help open their cones to disperse seeds, and flames also clear undergrowth so seedlings can take root. But their natural defenses weren't enough to protect them from the Castle Fire.
What we're looking at here is a result of the Castle Fire. It happened in 2020, came up through this Sequoia Crest community and literally wiped out this side of the mountain.
An unprecedented number of them burned in a group of fires last year, while thousands more were potentially lost this year during fires that burned in Sequoia National Park and the adjacent Sequoia National Forest.
The sequoias met with a fire of intensity that really has never been seen in their history. Sequoias are resistant to fire, but not immune.
A local resident lost his home in the Castle Fire.
The fire killed about 10 to 15%, I'm told, of the sequoias left on the planet. It destroyed half of our community, melted 50 homes down to the ground.
Extreme measures were taken to save the trees this year, including wrapping trunks of the largest trees in a fire-resistant foil, setting up sprinklers, raking the flammable matter from around the trees, and even using gel in the canopies to repel flames. Some of those efforts are proving successful, but a full assessment has yet to be conducted.
Federal officials have recovered a cargo plane that crashed into the ocean off Hawaii on Tuesday. The National Transportation Safety Board said all major components of the 737-200 jet, including the plane's black boxes, have been salvaged from about 400 feet of water off Oahu. The cargo plane was operated as Transair Flight 810. 2 pilots survived the crash after reporting problems with both engines shortly after takeoff from Honolulu on July 2nd. The flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder will be analyzed, and the plane's parts will be examined. The jet broke into 2 pieces during the crash. The NTSB says the investigation will be completed within the next 2 years. If you've got no plans for Thanksgiving this year, why not spend it at your local ice cream shop? Ice cream company Salt and Straw is now offering Thanksgiving-flavored ice creams. And we're not just talking pumpkin or pecan pie flavors. No, you can have your entire Thanksgiving meal in frozen, creamy form by ordering caramelized turkey and cranberry sauce ice cream and Parker House rolls with salted buttercream. How about a sweet potato pie flavor? Of course, there is also classic dessert flavors like candied walnut cheesecake and pumpkin and ginger snap pie. Don't worry if you don't live near a Salt and Straw retail location. The company will ship all 5 flavors to your home in its 5-pint Friendsgiving series. Yahoo says it's completely pulled out of China, and it's not the first well-known company to do so. An expert says it may not be the last. NTD's Evelyn Lee has the details.
Yahoo just stopped all its remaining online services in China Monday. A spokesperson says it's because the increasing challenging business and legal environment in China. On the same date, China's personal information protection law went into effect.
In China, it's just getting very, very hard for companies like Yahoo or LinkedIn to maintain a presence because their business model depends on streams of information that come from data providers, news providers, users.
LinkedIn also recently decided to shut down operations in China. It says it was facing a significantly more challenging operating environment and greater compliance requirements. Core says just recently Chinese officials asked the company to remove people from the Chinese version of its website.
It's not feasible from a just pure profit perspective to be operating in China anymore for some of these companies, especially if they are going to be hit with huge fines for improperly censoring their own content.
And because of it, he says there is a very high likelihood that there will be increasing decoupling from the West. China's clampdown on tech companies wiped away trillions and then it tightened gaming regulations. Now Epic Games is shutting down Fortnite in China.
It's been proven time and time again in history that communist approaches to economics, command economic approaches, just don't work. They drive out capital. They decrease the efficiency of the production process.
Core says he doesn't think the Chinese regime wants to have a closed economy, but it's going in that direction because Chinese leaders think they have more control over the economy than they can possibly have. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
And also in China, a possible oversight in a new virus control measure is resulting in a large number of Beijing locals being stranded outside Beijing. And China's Civil Aviation Administration is cutting down international flights to just 400 per week. NTD's Evelyn Lee has more on the story.
And now we look to China's capital. Beijing's newly adopted virus prevention and control measure is inadvertently stopping many of its residents from returning home. The measure prohibits anyone who has been in a high or medium virus risk district or community from entering Beijing. It comes during a rise in new virus cases in the capital. But there may be an oversight in the measure. Beijing itself has districts that are labeled as medium risk areas for the virus. What's happening in practice is that many people who live in Beijing cannot return if they leave. One Beijing resident posted his experience on the Chinese social media platform Weibo. I went to Zhengzhou on a business trip and was not allowed to return to Beijing the next day. I called the railway. They said it's because I exited Beijing by taking the train from Beijing West Railway Station. West Railway Station is in Fengtai District. Fengtai District is a medium high-risk area. The new measure is stirring up a lot of discussion on Weibo. Relevant hashtags have more than 17 million views. In fact, so many people have complained about the measure that Beijing municipality authorities issued an apology to those affected. The China Civil Aviation Administration is adopting a new schedule. According to an announcement on Friday, international passenger flights will drop to just over 400 per week. That's even 20% less than that during the pandemic's peak last year. And compared to the flight schedule before the pandemic, just over 2% of flights remain. The change took effect at the end of October and will run till late March. At the same time, domestic flights inside mainland China have seen an over 7% growth compared to the same seasons last year. China greatly reduced its international flights back at the height of the pandemic in March 2020. This embraced a policy saying that one airline company can only fly to one destination in one country once a week. The policy sent ticket prices soaring immediately, and many Chinese people who had been traveling were left stuck outside China. According to U.S.-based international broadcaster Voice of America, the new schedule wants to make sure that Beijing's Winter Olympics in February and Paralympic Games in March will run smoothly. China will likely face new tariffs. At least 32 countries may have ended their trade preference program with China. That's what the Chinese Customs Agency said last week. And we reached out to the foreign trade offices of France, Canada, and the UK, but didn't hear back before airtime. The trade program is called the Generalized System of Preferences, better known as GSP. It's a preferential tariff system that reduces tariffs on various products that will come from developing countries. Or in the U.S.'s case, those products would enter duty-free. The Chinese agency's statement says following the change next month, the regime will stop issuing GSP certificates of origin on products exported to the 27 EU countries, as well as the UK, Canada, Turkey, Ukraine, and Liechtenstein. The document is required by customs authorities to collect tariffs. The agency told Chinese exporters to switch to non-preferential certificates of origin for these countries. This type of certificate is not entitled to lower tariff rates. The GSP trade program was first adopted internationally in 1968. 40 countries had reduced tariffs for China under the program, including EU countries. Under the framework of the World Trade Organization, the program is supposed to encourage economic growth in developing countries by allowing them preferential access to developed country markets. Already being the world's second largest economy, China still insists it's a developing country. If it loses that status, China may face higher tariffs and the removal of other preferential trade treatment. But in recent years, more and more countries ended the GSP trade program with China. That includes Russia, Japan, and Switzerland. And up to now, only Norway, New Zealand, and Australia are still granting China that trade treatment.
Just ahead, the United Kingdom breathes a sigh of relief now that France wants to stop escalation in the fishing waters conflict between the two countries, while a UK fishing boat is still being held by France. Russian royal jewels smuggled out of the country in the 1917 revolution and rare colored diamonds up for auction next week in Geneva. All that and more in just a minute.
See China before communism. Behold a splendid culture reborn, filled with beauty, majesty, and a powerful message of hope. Come see the performance that has touched the hearts of millions, live on stage. Coming to West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami, November 8th through January 9th. Tickets at shenyun.com/SFL.
Why I'm never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you go. Babe, I'm never gonna let you go. No, no, never gonna let you go.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you go.
A 4-year-old girl who went missing in Western Australia has been found alive more than 2 weeks after she disappeared from her family's campsite. Police say a 36-year-old man with no connection to the family is now in custody over Cleo Smith's disappearance. The case led to a nationwide search. A clue led police to a home not far from Smith's, about 30 miles from the campsite. They say the house was locked before they broke down the door and found the girl inside. Cleo Smith is now back with her family. France has postponed its threat to impose a blockade on British fishing boats and goods, a move welcomed by the UK government. The two sides will have talks to settle the fishing license row later this week. Meanwhile, a seized British boat has still not been released, and French fishing boats are told to be careful when fishing in British waters. NTD's Eddie Aitken has the story.
Britain has welcomed France having stepped back from threats to impose punitive action in a dispute over post-Brexit fishing licenses. Environment Secretary George Eustace acknowledged a de-escalation from French President Emmanuel Macron.
Well, it has in the sense that France has clearly been taking a decision not to implement some of the measures that they threatened last Wednesday. We very much welcome that. But I think there's going to be a really important meeting on Thursday between Lord Frost and his opposite number, not just on fisheries, but on a wider range of issues as well.
France had threatened to bar British boats from some of its ports and tighten checks on boats and trucks carrying British goods from Monday midnight if no solution was found. They claim the UK authorities are refusing to grant licenses to French boats. Britain says it has granted 98% of applications from EU vessels, and now the dispute comes down to just a few dozen French boats with insufficient paperwork.
We've always been clear that we're open to further dialogue on that, and that if there's new evidence that can be brought to bear, then obviously we would consider that. We want to license any vessel that qualifies under the terms of the agreement we reached a year ago.
The Environment Secretary told Sky News he understood a British vessel impounded during the diplomatic storm has now been released by France. A spokesman later said the minister had misspoken. Its owner told Reuters his boat is still being held in France. He said the vessel will remain at the port of Le Havre at least until a hearing tomorrow. On the other side, the Regional Sea Fishing Committee for Northern France advised its members to steer clear of British waters in case they are caught up in tit-for-tat British measures.
I think the slightest problem could cause a significant issue and fines and boats to be impounded, especially as there is a huge media impact on the British side as well, where British fishermen are waiting for something like this to happen to get into it.
Brexit Minister Lord Frost and France's Europe Minister Clement Beaune will meet in Paris on Thursday. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
Royal jewels and rare diamonds up for auction next week. Some were smuggled out during the Russian Revolution. Others reveal hues hardly seen in these stones. The auction house says it's looking for big spenders emerging from the pandemic. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
An orange-pink diamond weighing over 25 carats is estimated at $3.8 million to $5.8 million. Set in a ring, it's the star lot at Sotheby's semi-annual jewelry sale in Geneva on November 10th.
The VS2 Clarity, a beautiful crystal. It's a fantastic color with a little bit of orange, but not too much. So it's a very subtle color, and it's a stone without any fluorescence, any graining, which is very rare for pink diamond because that's what gives normally the color. It's a deformation of the crystal structure.
A pair of flawless white diamond earrings, each with a suspended square-cut stone weighing over 25 carats, is expected to fetch $4.5 million to $5.5 million.
So it's a fantastic pair of Asher-cut diamonds, both weighing exactly 25.88 carats, D flawless, so the top quality for white diamonds. One stone is type 2A, so chemically very pure, so they have almost no traces of nitrogen.
A large oval sapphire and diamond brooch and matching ear clips from the jewelry box of Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna, the aunt of last Russian Emperor Nicholas II, is back on the block.
They belonged to the Grand Duchess Maria Pavlovna of Russia, who was like the queen of the social life in St. Petersburg. She was the wife of the Grand Duke Vladimir, so the son of the Tsar, and she had a fantastic collection of jewels. She loved jewelry.
The royal set was entrusted to her friend, British diplomat Albert Henry Stopford, and is estimated to sell for between $300,000 and $500,000, the auction house said. Pavlovna escaped from revolutionary Russia and died in France in 1920. A princely family from Europe bought her brooch and earrings at auction a decade ago. Now they're up for grabs again. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
While COVID mandates sent many into physical isolation, they also pushed people closer, though sometimes too close for comfort. Here are a few tips to strengthen relationship bonds. Here's Gina Marie, who brings us Strong Mind and Body.
Welcome to Strong Mind and Body. I'm Gina Marie. Relationships can be one of the biggest stresses there are. It's also an issue that's been highlighted by the pandemic. Whether you're sharing a small house or a big one, it can be difficult to avoid stress and carve out space. There is such a thing as spending too much time together. Regardless of whether it's with your husband, wife, best friend, or even your children. Finding ways to identify and manage stressful relationship periods can help protect your heart and overall health. It can also improve your most valued relationships. The first thing you can do is identify why there may be a lack of peace, understanding, and general comfort within the home. The pandemic has added a significant cause of stress. It's hard enough remaining in closed quarters when outlets exist, but now there is almost nowhere to go. Social isolation, normal stresses, and generational differences can all help fuel the fire. You can, however, find ways to get along. One of them is to cut your partner some slack and remember how stressful things are at the moment. If they get mad at you for something minuscule, remember it's likely the result of existential stress. Take it and move on. It's also worth recognizing if you're the one unnecessarily snapping or using little things to address bigger issues. Finding ways to communicate better what's bothering you is a great way to ease relationship tension. When you do communicate, avoid accusatory tones. Don't blame your partner, rather tell them what you are struggling with so you can better understand each other. Seek distance and create boundaries. Even if it's retiring to another room for most of the day, make sure to carve out time alone. Schedule together times for meals or a walk, but respect each other's need for space. Put simply, balance closeness and distance. Remember that wanting time apart does not mean there is a problem with the relationship. Managing relationship stress can help to protect your heart and reduce the risk of chronic illness. Adjust expectations and try to implement strategies that strengthen your closest bonds.
Talk about an out-of-this-world meal. Astronauts at the International Space Station recently enjoyed a taco dinner made with chili peppers grown on board the ISS. The peppers were planted as part of a plant investigation back in July, and last week they were ready for harvesting and sampling. Humans have been living and working on the space station for 2 decades. The bulk of their meals are pre-packaged, but this experiment may clear a path for the cultivation of more fresh food items in the future. NASA says it was one of the longest and most challenging plant experiments ever attempted on board the orbiting laboratory. And from the looks of it, it seems like one of the tastiest as well. A pony has captured the hearts of Japanese citizens with its amusing, tongue-twisting name. Check out this video to see how its name makes commenting on the race a tough task.
Thanks, Grandpa, back there with Sumomomomomomomo. Now moving forward, smart, else up. Smart Elsa, Star a Bouquet, and here comes Sumomomomomomomo. Coming down to the wire, half a furlong left to go. Star a Bouquet, Sumomomomomomomo, coming across the line, Sumomomomomomomo in for the victory.
After winning the third race on Monday, this 3-year-old filly became a star at a Tokyo racecourse, but her 9-syllable name has been a source of terror for racing commentators. The name is based on a Japanese tongue twister that means plums and peaches are both peaches. Both the phrase and the horse's name are now gaining fame online, leaving Twitter users laughing and confused at the same time. Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Before you go, here's something you should know. Don't forget you can catch all of NTD's programs on television. NTD Business premieres live Mondays through Fridays at 5 p.m. We broadcast to many of your favorite platforms, Apple TV and Roku, for example. We're also rapidly growing on cable, satellite, and over-the-air all across the United States. Just go to ntd.com/TV, type in your zip code, and find all the ways you can watch NTD.